Hey everyone, welcome to my channel from start to now. If you love uncovering hidden stories from history, you're in the right place. Don't forget to like and subscribe so you won't miss our future videos. Let's dive in. Imagine a civilization so ancient that its story spans thousands of years. Yet most of what you think you know barely scratches the surface. Imagine emperors with legendary power, dynasties that shaped entire eras, secret societies, groundbreaking inventions, and a culture that has influenced the world in ways most people will never realize. Today, we're uncovering China's hidden history from its earliest rulers to its rise as a modern global powerhouse, and by the end of this journey, I guarantee you'll see China in a completely new light, questioning everything you thought you knew. China's story begins in the fertile plains along the Yellow River, often called the cradle of Chinese civilization, a place where life and culture began to take root thousands of years ago. Imagine a world without cities, without written language, where communities survived purely by working the land and understanding the rhythms of nature. It was here, along these winding rivers and rich farmlands, that the earliest forms of Chinese society started to emerge, giving rise to the Zhou dynasty around 2100 BC. While some scholars debate the exact historicity of the Zhou, its legacy lives on as the beginning of a continuous recorded lineage, the first hint of a civilization that would persist for millennia. The Zhou dynasty, as far as we know, was more than just a collection of villages. It represented the first attempts at organized governance, structured society, and the use of agriculture to support a growing population. People began to cultivate crops like millet and rice, domesticating animals and building early settlements that would evolve into the cities of later dynasties. The leaders of the Zhou understood the need for organization, for rules and systems that allowed communities to thrive, and these early forms of government would echo through Chinese history for thousands of years. Following the Zhou, the Shang Dynasty rose to prominence around 1600 BC, bringing with it dramatic advancements in culture, technology, and governance. The Shang are most famous for their bronze work, crafting intricate ritual vessels, weapons, and tools that reflected both their practical needs and spiritual beliefs. Bronze wasn't just a material. It was a symbol of power, authority, and artistry. But perhaps even more fascinating was the Shang's development of writing. Through the use of oracle bones, the Shang kings communicated with the divine, seeking guidance for everything from warfare to agriculture. These inscriptions, etched onto turtle shells and animal bones, form some of the earliest known examples of Chinese writing, and they offer a window into the concerns, priorities, and beliefs of a civilization that was already sophisticated and highly organized. It's astonishing to realize that thousands of years ago, people were systematically recording their history, predicting the future, and attempting to understand the world around them in ways that are not so different from our own methods today. As the centuries passed, the Zhou dynasty emerged around 1046 BC, bringing with it an even deeper sense of cultural and philosophical development. The Zhou introduced the concept of the mandate of heaven, a powerful idea that would influence Chinese governance for generations. This concept wasn't just political propaganda. It was a framework for understanding legitimacy and morality in leadership. A ruler was believed to be chosen by divine authority, but if he or she became corrupt or tyrannical, that divine favor could be withdrawn, justifying rebellion and the rise of a new ruler. The mandate of heaven established a moral standard for governance, embedding the idea that leaders were accountable not only to their people, but to a higher cosmic order. During the Zhou period, society became more structured, with a focus on family hierarchy, ritual, and moral conduct. Bronze technology continued to evolve, agriculture became more sophisticated, and trade began to expand between regions, setting the stage for future economic and cultural developments. The Zhou also faced periods of internal division, but it was during these moments of tension that some of China's greatest philosophical minds began to shape ideas that would endure for centuries, creating a foundation for intellectual and ethical thought that still resonates today. Life in these early dynasties was complex and multifaceted. Communities were centered around family and clan structures, where loyalty and kinship determined social organization. People worked the land collectively, celebrated seasonal festivals, and participated in rituals designed to honor ancestors and maintain harmony with the natural and spiritual world. Agriculture wasn't just a means of survival, it was central to identity, economy, and culture. The innovations of the Xia, Shang, and Zhou dynasties weren't isolated achievements. They were interconnected advancements that created the backbone of Chinese civilization. The development of irrigation systems, flood control, and crop rotation allowed populations to grow and cities to flourish. At the same time, the emergence of a written language provided a means to communicate, record events, and codify laws, creating continuity that would persist through countless dynasties. What's particularly striking about this early period is the combination of innovation and tradition. On one hand, leaders and thinkers were experimenting with technology, administration, and culture, constantly pushing boundaries. On the other hand, there was a deep respect for continuity, for understanding one's place in the cosmos, and for maintaining harmony with ancestors and the natural world. This balance between progress and tradition became a defining feature of Chinese civilization, one that allowed it to endure through centuries of change, upheaval, and external threats. Even in times of political turmoil, the values and systems established during these formative dynasties provided a sense of stability, identity, and purpose. The Xia, Shang, and Zhou dynasties were not just ancient rulers, they were the architects of a civilization. They created the systems that allowed China to grow from small villages into organized states, developing technologies, culture, and philosophies that would ripple across centuries. These early dynasties also demonstrated the importance of governance, law, and moral leadership, lessons that would be echoed in later periods by emperors, philosophers, and reformers. When we look at China today, with its massive cities, sophisticated infrastructure, and global influence, it's easy to forget that it all began with people learning to work the land, build communities, and seek order in a chaotic world. The foundation laid by these early dynasties was essential for the evolution of Chinese society, influencing not only the course of history within the country, but also contributing to the development of global civilization through trade, culture, and innovation. The story of these early Chinese dynasties is also a story of human ambition, creativity, and resilience. Leaders faced immense challenges: natural disasters, political rivalries, and the constant need to manage resources and populations. Communities had to adapt to changing environments, invent new technologies, and find ways to maintain social cohesion. Through it all, they created a culture that valued learning, morality, and harmony, a culture that placed great emphasis on the connection between heaven, earth, and humanity. The artifacts, written records, and archaeological evidence left behind offer us more than just historical facts. They give us insight into the minds, beliefs, and daily lives of people who lived thousands of years ago. It's a civilization that wasn't just surviving. It was thriving, experimenting, and laying the groundwork for everything that would come later, from dynastic empires to philosophical revolutions and technological breakthroughs. By understanding this early history, we gain perspective on why China has been able to endure for so long. The systems of governance, the emphasis on moral leadership, the innovations in technology and agriculture, and the rich cultural and philosophical traditions all stem from this ancient foundation. The Xia, Shang, and Zhou dynasties didn't just exist in isolation. They set in motion a chain of developments that would influence every subsequent era, creating a continuous thread that connects the distant past to the present. In essence, these dynasties were not only shaping China, they were shaping the very idea of civilization itself, showing how humans can create complex societies, maintain continuity over millennia, and leave a legacy that continues to inform the world today, as the early dynasties of China were laying the foundations of governance, culture, and society. A parallel transformation was taking place in the minds of its people. It was a time of great turbulence, when kingdoms fought for dominance. Yet it was precisely this chaos that gave rise to some of the most profound thinkers in human history. Philosophers emerged who weren't content to simply accept the world as it was. They questioned, analyzed, and offered ideas that would shape not only Chinese civilization, but also the broader human understanding of morality, strategy, and the nature of existence. Among these thinkers, three names stand out: Confucius, Laozi, and Sun Tzu, each representing a unique vision of life, society, and leadership, and each leaving a legacy that continues to influence the world today. Confucius, or Confuzi as he is known in his homeland, lived during a period of social fragmentation and political instability known as the Spring and Autumn period. Imagine a world where warlords vied for power, where traditions were breaking down, and where ordinary people struggled to navigate a society in flux. In this context, Confucius sought to restore order not through force, but through moral cultivation, education, and the observance of rituals. He believed that a well-ordered society began with the individual, and that personal virtue, respect for elders, loyalty to family, and ethical behavior were the foundations of social harmony. His teachings emphasized the importance of relationships, particularly within families, and the idea that rulers should lead by example rather than through fear or coercion. Confucius' approach was revolutionary because it shifted the focus from laws and punishment to ethics and character, suggesting that the moral development of each person could shape the destiny of a nation. Confucius also placed great value on learning, dialogue, and reflection, encouraging his students to think critically and question assumptions while adhering to core ethical principles. His disciples recorded his teachings in texts such as the Analects, which became essential reading for generations of scholars, bureaucrats, and leaders. What's remarkable about Confucius' influence is how enduring it has been. For over 2 millennia, his ideas have informed governance, education, and social norms across China and East Asia. Even in modern times, his emphasis on respect, integrity, and duty resonates with people navigating the complexities of both personal life and professional environments. Confucius' vision was not about rigid dogma, but about cultivating a sense of responsibility and harmony, showing that philosophy could have practical, everyday implications for how people live, work, and govern. While Confucius focused on ethics, society, and the cultivation of virtue, Laozi offered a different path, one that looked beyond human constructs and sought harmony with the natural world. Laozi, the legendary founder of Taoism, lived around the same era, though much about his life remains shrouded in mystery. He wrote the Tao Te Ching, a compact but profound text that emphasizes the importance of simplicity, humility, and living in accordance with the Tao, often translated as the Way. Laozi taught that many of life's struggles arise from resistance to the natural flow of things, from clinging too tightly to power, desire, or control. His philosophy encouraged letting go, embracing flexibility, and understanding that the universe operates according to principles far greater than any individual. In a world of constant conflict, Laozi's teachings offered a kind of refuge, A reminder that wisdom often lies in patience, observation, and alignment with the natural order. The influence of Taoism extended far beyond philosophy. It shaped Chinese art, literature, medicine, and even politics. Taoist ideas about balance, energy, and harmony influenced traditional Chinese medicine and martial arts, emphasizing the interconnection between mind, body, and the environment. It also inspired rulers and ordinary people alike to consider the subtle dynamics of power and the consequences of forcing change rather than guiding it. In essence, Laozi offered an alternative to Confucius' structured moral system, a path that prioritized adaptability, intuition, and alignment with the rhythms of nature, highlighting the richness and diversity of Chinese thought during this period. Then there was Sun Tzu, a military strategist whose insights into warfare, leadership, and strategy remain studied around the world to this day. Living during the Warring States period, Sun Tzu experienced firsthand the brutality and chaos of constant conflict, and he distilled these experiences into The Art of War, a text that is as much about psychology, planning, and human behavior as it is about combat. Sun Tzu emphasized preparation, adaptability, and understanding both your own strengths and those of your opponent. He advocated for intelligence, deception, and efficiency, teaching that the best victory is one achieved without unnecessary destruction. His principles were grounded in realism but also in careful observation of human nature, emphasizing that strategy is ultimately about managing relationships, predicting behavior, and making the most of available resources. What makes the emergence of these thinkers so extraordinary is the context in which they appeared. China was not a single, unified state. It was a mosaic of competing states, each with its own rulers, armies, and ambitions. It was a time of uncertainty, where survival depended on both personal skill and societal cohesion. Yet, in this environment of instability, Confucius, Laozi, and Sun Tzu were able to observe, reflect, and offer timeless guidance. Their ideas were not isolated. They interacted with one another, responding to the same social pressures and cultural currents, creating a philosophical ecosystem that shaped the moral, spiritual, and practical frameworks of Chinese society. While Confucius focused on virtue and social order, Laozi emphasized harmony with nature, and Sun Tzu addressed strategy and leadership. Together, their teachings provide a comprehensive map for understanding both human behavior and the broader dynamics of society. The intellectual legacy of these thinkers is remarkable not only for its depth but also for its longevity. For centuries, their ideas informed the structure of government, the selection of officials, and the ethical framework within which decisions were made. Confucianism became the backbone of the civil service system, ensuring that moral and intellectual excellence were rewarded. Taoism continued to inspire art, medicine, and spiritual practices, promoting a sense of balance and introspection. Sun Tzu's strategies were employed not only in war but in diplomacy, business, and leadership, illustrating that practical wisdom can be timeless. The enduring relevance of these philosophies highlights how deeply the intellectual achievements of this era shaped the course of Chinese history and even influenced global thought. Beyond the practical and philosophical impact, these thinkers also reflect something fundamental about the human experience, that in times of chaos, observation, reflection, and reason can create order and meaning. They teach us that understanding ourselves, our environment, and our relationships is as crucial as mastering external challenges. Their insights remind us that societies thrive not merely through technology or power, but through ideas, ethics, and strategies that guide behavior over generations. This early intellectual flowering of China created a foundation upon which dynasties would build, inventors would innovate, and leaders would govern, demonstrating that culture and thought are as vital to the survival and success of a civilization as armies or infrastructure. Through Confucius, Laozi, and Sun Tzu, we see that Chinese civilization was not only about rulers, wars, and cities. It was also about ideas, observation, and philosophy, shaping how people understood their place in the world. These thinkers gave China a moral compass, a spiritual guide, and a strategic playbook, all at a time when survival was uncertain and change was constant. Their legacies continue to resonate because they address universal questions: how to live ethically, how to align with the natural order, and how to navigate conflict intelligently. They remind us that the true strength of a civilization lies not only in its resources or armies, but in the depth and resilience of its thought, in the capacity of its people to reflect, learn, and innovate, and in the enduring power of ideas to shape generations as the philosophical foundations of China were being laid by thinkers like Confucius, Laozi, and Sun Tzu. The practical structures of power, governance, and innovation were evolving alongside them, and it was during this period that China began to consolidate into larger, more organized states. The Warring States period had shown the dangers of fragmentation, where constant conflict weakened societies and allowed chaos to dominate. It was into this environment that Qin Shi Huang rose, unifying the various states under a single emperor for the first time in Chinese history. Imagine a country divided into multiple territories, each with its own laws, currency, and culture, suddenly being brought together under a single authority. The scale of this achievement is almost unimaginable, especially considering the technological and logistical limitations of the time. Qin Shi Huang didn't just conquer territory, he standardized measurements, coins, and even the written script, creating cohesion in a previously fractured land. His reforms weren't merely administrative. They were visionary, designed to bind together millions of people across vast distances, creating the infrastructure for a civilization that could endure for millennia. But Qin Shi Huang was not only a visionary, he was also a figure of immense ambition and ruthlessness. To secure his empire, he implemented strict legal codes and punished dissent harshly, demonstrating a philosophy that prioritized order above all else. He believed that control and standardization were the keys to stability, and in many ways, his methods laid the groundwork for the bureaucratic systems that would dominate Chinese governance for centuries. At the same time, he undertook massive construction projects, most famously the first version of the Great Wall of China, built to defend the empire from northern invaders. Thousands of laborers worked under grueling conditions to construct these fortifications, leaving a legacy of monumental scale and human sacrifice. But perhaps the most remarkable and enduring symbol of his reign is his elaborate tomb, guarded by the terracotta army. Thousands of life-sized soldiers, each uniquely crafted, were buried to protect the emperor in the afterlife, reflecting not only his obsession with immortality, but also the extraordinary craftsmanship, organizational skill, and resources available in ancient China. After the fall of the Qin Dynasty, which was short-lived due to widespread rebellion and internal unrest, the Han Dynasty emerged and solidified many of the innovations and structures that Qin had introduced, while also ushering in what is often considered a golden age of Chinese civilization. The Han rulers understood the importance of connecting their empire internally and externally, and one of their most significant achievements was the expansion of trade routes, which would later be known as the Silk Road. This network of trade not only facilitated the exchange of silk, tea, and porcelain, but also created channels for cultural, technological, and philosophical exchange between China and distant lands. Ideas, inventions, and beliefs traveled along these routes, shaping societies far beyond China's borders. The Han Dynasty also advanced agriculture, science, and medicine, developing sophisticated irrigation systems, medical texts, and astronomical studies. The compass, paper, and other technologies were refined during this era. innovations that would eventually transform the world in ways most people don't immediately realize. The Han period was also remarkable for its emphasis on bureaucratic governance. By creating a system of examinations and merit-based appointments, the Han established a tradition of administrative competence and accountability. Officials were selected for their knowledge and ability rather than solely for their social status, a principle that would influence Chinese governance for over 2 millennia. Education became a central pillar of society, and the value of learning was elevated, linking back to the philosophical foundations laid by Confucius centuries earlier. The Han Dynasty showed that an empire could thrive not just through military might, but through the careful cultivation of knowledge, administration, and infrastructure, creating a stable and prosperous society that could support large populations over vast territories. As dynasties continued to rise and fall, each contributed uniquely to the evolution of China's power and influence. The Tang Dynasty, for instance, is remembered for its cosmopolitan culture, vibrant trade, and artistic achievements. Cities became hubs of commerce, learning, and innovation, attracting travelers from across Asia and beyond. The Song Dynasty brought an era of technological revolution, with advances in printing, gunpowder, and the magnetic compass. These innovations were not only remarkable for their ingenuity, but also for their long-term impact on global civilization. The Yuan dynasty, under Mongol rule, demonstrated that China could absorb and adapt to foreign influences while maintaining its cultural identity, blending local traditions with external ideas in ways that strengthened the empire. The Ming Dynasty then further solidified Chinese power, showcasing incredible architectural feats like the Forbidden City and undertaking ambitious maritime explorations led by Admiral Zheng He. These voyages projected Chinese influence across Asia and the Indian Ocean, creating networks of diplomacy, trade, and cultural exchange that were unprecedented in scale. What's fascinating about this era of imperial unification and innovation is how deeply intertwined governance, culture, and technology were. Leaders understood that maintaining power required more than armies. It required infrastructure, communication, and intellectual advancement. Standardized systems of currency, weights, measures, and writing allowed trade and administration to function smoothly across vast distances. Innovations in agriculture, water management, and construction supported growing populations, creating the foundation for sustained economic and social stability. At the same time, the flourishing of arts, literature, and philosophy ensured that Chinese society was not just organized, but culturally rich and intellectually vibrant. The achievements of these dynasties demonstrate that power and progress are inseparable from vision, strategy, and adaptability. The innovations of these periods also had a profound impact on the world beyond China. The Silk Road connected East and West, carrying not only goods but also knowledge, religions, and technologies that transformed societies from Persia to Rome. Gunpowder, printing, and the compass, refined and popularized during these eras, eventually reshaped warfare, communication, and navigation on a global scale. Chinese inventions and administrative practices became models for neighboring societies and influenced trade and diplomacy across continents. The ability of these dynasties to balance centralized control with cultural flourishing created a blueprint for sustained national power, demonstrating how a civilization can grow resilient, innovative, and influential over time. What's even more remarkable is the continuity of these achievements. Each dynasty built upon the foundations of its predecessors, refining systems of governance, improving infrastructure, and expanding cultural and technological capabilities. From the unification under Qin Shi Huang to the Han Dynasty's golden age, and through the Tang, Song, Yuan, and Ming, China evolved through a process of learning, adaptation, and innovation. Leaders learned from past mistakes, philosophers offered guidance, and the society as a whole absorbed new ideas while maintaining a strong sense of identity. This continuity allowed China not only to survive internal and external challenges, but to thrive and influence the wider world. Through the lens of imperial unification and innovation, we see how China transformed from a collection of fragmented states into a cohesive, technologically advanced, and culturally rich civilization. The achievements of these dynasties were not accidental. They were the result of strategic vision, administrative skill, and a deep understanding of both human nature and the natural environment. The ability to standardize, organize, innovate, and adapt allowed China to endure, grow, and leave an indelible mark on global history. The structures, systems, and inventions developed during these periods laid the groundwork for future dynasties and ultimately set the stage for China's modern rise, showing that the pursuit of order, knowledge, and innovation is timeless in shaping the destiny of nations as the centuries passed. China faced immense challenges, both from within and from outside its borders, and it is during these periods of trial that the resilience, adaptability, and complexity of Chinese civilization become most apparent. After the heights of the Tang, Song, and Ming dynasties, the Qing Dynasty emerged as the final imperial dynasty in 1644, a period that would bring both expansion and, eventually, tremendous upheaval. The Qing rulers were from the Manchu ethnic group, distinct from the majority Han Chinese population, yet they managed to consolidate power over an enormous territory, stretching China's borders farther than ever before. Their early years were marked by stability, prosperity, and cultural achievement. But beneath the surface, cracks were beginning to form. The enormous size of the empire, combined with a complex bureaucratic system, created challenges in governance and administration, and the pressures of modernization and external threats would eventually expose deep vulnerabilities. By the 19th century, the Qing dynasty faced a series of unprecedented crises. Internal rebellions erupted as economic hardship, corruption, and social unrest grew. The Taiping Rebellion, for example, was one of the deadliest conflicts in human history, with millions of lives lost, reflecting the intensity of social pressures and the fragility of imperial control. At the same time, foreign powers were increasingly encroaching on China's sovereignty. The Opium Wars with Britain revealed the military and technological superiority of the West, and resulted in humiliating treaties that forced China to cede territory, open ports, and accept foreign influence in unprecedented ways. These unequal treaties undermined the legitimacy of the Qing rulers and sparked a sense of national crisis. China, which had once been the most advanced civilization in the world in terms of governance, culture, and technology, now faced the harsh reality of global power dynamics, a shock that would reverberate for generations. Yet, even in the midst of crisis, the resilience of Chinese society shone through. Reformers and intellectuals began to advocate for change, recognizing that survival depended on modernization, education, and adaptation. The self-strengthening movement, which emerged in the late 19th century, sought to adopt Western technology and military practices while maintaining Chinese cultural identity. Railways, telegraphs, arsenals, and modern schools were established, and new ideas about governance, science, and industry were introduced. Although these efforts were uneven and met with resistance, they demonstrate that China's leaders and thinkers understood the need to balance tradition with innovation, a theme that echoes throughout the country's long history. The struggle to modernize while preserving identity would become a defining challenge in the 20th century, as China transitioned from an empire to a republic, and eventually to a modern nation-state. The fall of the Qing Dynasty in 1912 marked the end of over 2,000 years of imperial rule, a dramatic shift that left China grappling with questions of identity, governance, and the path forward. The early Republic of China, led by figures like Sun Yat-sen, faced immediate challenges, including warlordism, regional divisions, and foreign interference. Yet this period also fostered a new sense of national consciousness and a determination to reshape society. Intellectuals, reformers, and revolutionaries debated the future of China, exploring ideologies from democracy to socialism. And these debates laid the groundwork for the political movements that would dominate the country in the decades to come. It was a time of uncertainty and experimentation, a transitional period in which the lessons of history, from the successes of past dynasties to the failures of outdated institutions, were being weighed and applied in real time. The struggle for modernization continued throughout the early 20th century, culminating in the Chinese Civil War, a conflict that would eventually lead to the establishment of the People's Republic of China in 1949 under Mao Zedong. Mao's rise represented both continuity and radical change. On one hand, he drew on centuries of Chinese political thought, organization, and strategy. On the other, he introduced revolutionary ideas that sought to fundamentally transform society, economy, and governance. The early years of the People's Republic were marked by ambitious campaigns to industrialize the country, collectivize agriculture, and promote social reform. While some of these efforts succeeded in laying the foundation for modernization, others, such as the Great Leap Forward, led to catastrophic consequences, including famine and social disruption. The Cultural Revolution further disrupted education, governance, and culture, challenging traditions and shaking the very fabric of Chinese society. Yet through these trials, China retained a sense of continuity, a recognition that survival depended on both adaptation and learning from the past. The challenges of the 20th century also underscored the importance of strategic thinking, a principle that echoes the insights of Sun Tzu centuries earlier. Leaders had to navigate internal divisions, economic challenges, and international pressures, balancing ideology with pragmatism and tradition with modernization. This period of upheaval also demonstrated the resilience of the Chinese people, whose ability to endure hardship, maintain cultural identity, and rebuild society is a recurring theme throughout the nation's history. Despite wars, famines, and political turmoil, China's society and culture persisted, reflecting a deep-rooted adaptability that has allowed it to survive and eventually thrive in the modern era. By the late 20th century, China began a new phase of transformation, moving from revolutionary upheaval to pragmatic modernization. Economic reforms initiated by leaders such as Deng Xiaoping opened the country to global trade, investment, and technological advancement. Cities transformed into bustling hubs of commerce. Infrastructure expanded at an unprecedented pace, and China's influence on the global stage grew rapidly. What is striking is that these modern developments are not disconnected from China's history. They build on the foundations laid by dynasties, philosophers, and reformers across millennia. Administrative systems, cultural identity, strategic thinking, and social resilience all play a role in how China navigates its place in the contemporary world. The lessons of the past, whether about governance, adaptation, or societal cohesion, continue to inform decisions and strategies in ways that are subtle but profound. Throughout this period of challenge and transformation, the story of China illustrates a key lesson about civilizations. Power, influence, and stability are never permanent, and the ability to adapt, reform, and innovate is essential for survival. From the struggles of the Qing Dynasty to the political upheavals of the 20th century, China demonstrated that even when an empire faces internal collapse and external pressure, cultural continuity, intellectual heritage, and social resilience can endure. This continuity allowed China not only to survive profound challenges, but to emerge as a modern power capable of influencing the global stage. The experiences of these centuries also highlight the dynamic relationship between tradition and change, showing how a society can preserve its identity while embracing necessary innovation and reform, a balance that remains relevant in understanding China today. In examining these periods of struggle and transformation, we also see the importance of leadership, vision, and societal cohesion. Dynasties and leaders that failed to adapt often faced collapse, while those that could combine strategic thinking with cultural legitimacy managed to maintain stability. The Qing Dynasty's early successes, followed by its later failures, provide a clear illustration of how internal governance, external threats, and societal pressures interact to shape the fate of nations. Similarly, the Republic and early People's Republic periods demonstrate that revolution, reform, and modernization are complex processes that require not only vision but also careful management, learning from history, and resilience in the face of setbacks. China's journey through these centuries is a testament to the ability of a civilization to evolve while retaining a sense of identity, and to leverage lessons from the past to navigate the uncertainties of the present and future. As China emerged from the upheavals of the 20th century, it entered a period of remarkable transformation that would redefine its role in the world. The People's Republic of China, established in 1949, faced enormous challenges, from rebuilding a war-torn nation to establishing political stability, economic development, and social cohesion. The early decades were marked by ambitious campaigns aimed at modernization, industrialization, and social reform, but these efforts were often accompanied by hardship and controversy. Mao Zedong's leadership, while uniting the country and instilling a sense of national identity, also introduced radical policies like the Great Leap Forward and the Cultural Revolution, which caused profound social and economic disruption. Millions of people suffered, education systems were disrupted, and cultural artifacts were destroyed. Yet through it all, the underlying resilience of Chinese society persisted. Families, communities, and local networks adapted, finding ways to survive, rebuild, and maintain a sense of continuity amidst enormous change. This resilience is a defining characteristic of China's history, reflecting the enduring ability of its people to navigate crises while preserving the essence of their culture and identity. By the late 1970s, China began a new chapter under the pragmatic leadership of Deng Xiaoping, who introduced reforms that would open the country to the global economy and transform its society. Deng recognized that China's survival and growth depended on embracing modernization, adopting technological advances, and participating in international trade, all while maintaining political stability. The introduction of market-oriented reforms, the establishment of special economic zones, and the encouragement of foreign investment sparked rapid economic growth, urbanization, and industrialization. Cities like Shanghai, Shenzhen, and Beijing became symbols of this transformation, with skyscrapers, bustling ports, and vibrant commercial centers signaling China's rise as a modern power. The contrast between traditional villages and modern cities reflects the pace and scale of change, illustrating how a nation with millennia of history can adapt to contemporary realities without losing its cultural identity. China's rise as a global power is also marked by its technological advancements and ambitious projects. Investments in infrastructure, education, and research have positioned China as a leader in fields such as high-speed rail, telecommunications, artificial intelligence, and space exploration. The Belt and Road Initiative, an ambitious global development strategy, demonstrates China's desire to connect with the world economically, culturally, and politically. These projects are not merely economic. They are also expressions of China's long-standing strategic vision, reflecting lessons learned from history about the importance of trade, diplomacy, and influence. Just as the Han Dynasty used the Silk Road to connect civilizations, modern China leverages technology, infrastructure, and commerce to extend its global presence, showing a continuity of strategic thinking across thousands of years. What is particularly striking about modern China is the way it balances the preservation of cultural heritage with the drive for innovation. Ancient traditions, philosophical teachings, and historical landmarks are not discarded. Rather, they are integrated into the national identity, providing a sense of continuity that strengthens social cohesion. Confucian values such as respect for hierarchy, family loyalty, and moral responsibility continue to influence social norms and governance, while Taoist ideas about balance and harmony subtly inform approaches to environmental management, health, and urban planning. Even the strategic thinking of Sun Tzu finds echoes in modern policy and business strategies, illustrating that the lessons of the past are deeply embedded in contemporary decision-making. This blending of ancient wisdom with modern innovation allows China to maintain a unique identity while actively shaping its future. China's rise on the global stage also reflects the lessons of resilience and adaptation learned from centuries of history. The nation has faced invasions, colonization, civil wars, revolutions, and political upheaval. Yet it has repeatedly reinvented itself while maintaining a sense of continuity. Modern China is, in many ways, the culmination of thousands of years of experience with governance, innovation, philosophy, and strategy. The ability to navigate complex internal and external challenges is not accidental. It is rooted in a long tradition of learning from history, observing patterns, and adapting strategies to changing circumstances. This historical perspective gives China a unique approach to both domestic policy and international relations, emphasizing long-term planning, strategic patience, and pragmatic adaptation. Economic growth in modern China has lifted hundreds of millions of people out of poverty, created unprecedented opportunities for urbanization, and positioned the country as a key player in global trade and finance. Alongside economic development, China has invested in education, technology, and infrastructure, creating an environment in which innovation can flourish. This focus on long-term growth mirrors the careful planning and strategic thinking seen in China's imperial history, where rulers invested in infrastructure, agriculture, and education to ensure stability and prosperity. The lessons of past dynasties about the importance of governance, social cohesion, and adaptability continue to guide China's approach to modern challenges, showing that the past is never truly separate from the present. Culturally, China continues to project influence worldwide through cinema, literature, art, philosophy, and cuisine. Soft power has become a key element of China's global strategy, allowing it to shape perceptions, build relationships, and promote cultural understanding. Historical achievements, traditional festivals, and philosophical teachings are celebrated and shared with the world, reinforcing China's unique identity while engaging with global audiences. This approach reflects a deep understanding of history and human behavior. Influence is most enduring when it combines material power with cultural resonance, a principle that Chinese rulers and thinkers have understood for thousands of years. China's story in the modern era is also a story of balance, balancing rapid economic growth with social stability, tradition with modernization, domestic development with global engagement, and innovation with cultural continuity. These dualities are not new. They echo the challenges faced by past dynasties and rulers who had to maintain order while fostering growth and adapting to changing circumstances. What sets modern China apart is the scale and speed of transformation. In just a few decades, the nation has moved from relative isolation and poverty to becoming a central player in global politics, trade, and technology. demonstrating a remarkable capacity for adaptation and strategic vision. The rise of China as a modern power also highlights the enduring relevance of resilience and long-term planning. Just as emperors once built canals, roads, and fortifications to sustain their empire, modern China invests in infrastructure, research, and global initiatives to secure its place in the world. The lessons of history about preparation, foresight, and adaptability inform contemporary strategies, showing that the past is not merely a record of events, but a guide for shaping the future. This continuity, combined with an openness to innovation, allows China to project influence effectively, maintain internal cohesion, and respond to global challenges with a sense of confidence rooted in thousands of years of experience. Through economic, technological, and cultural achievements, China demonstrates that the rise of a nation is not only about power or resources. It is about learning from history, cultivating resilience, and integrating the wisdom of the past into the strategies of the present. Modern China reflects the cumulative knowledge of dynasties, philosophers, reformers, and innovators who came before, showing that civilization is a continuous process in which past lessons are applied to present challenges and future ambitions. This journey from ancient emperors to contemporary global influence is a testament to the enduring strength, adaptability, and vision of the Chinese people, and it offers insights not only into the nature of power, but also into the ways in which culture, strategy, and resilience shape the destiny of nations.